Afternoon, everyone. My name's James. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Impact Plus. We are a tech company focused on reducing the environmental impact of digital advertising, and importantly, without impacting media performance. And today, I want to talk a little bit more, actually following the immediate team, about how we can build a more sustainable advertising ecosystem. Before I talk about some of the actions that we can take, I just want to talk about some of the drivers that are happening in the space today. If you go back 3 years to when Impact Plus was formed, sustainability wasn't really a major theme for the industry. There weren't tech platforms dedicated to measuring this. And I think for the majority, digital advertising wasn't really thought of or seen as a high carbon industry. Of course, we know today that wasn't the case then. It's certainly not the case now. We've seen some interesting data already, but digital advertising globally emits as much greenhouse gas as 60 million round trips between London and New York every year. So this is becoming an increasingly competitive space. It's something that buyers are considering more, and there are a number of push and pull factors driving this forward. The pull factors very much coming from consumers. So 84% of global consumers said that they will be more likely to buy from a company which practices sustainable media advertising. And the push factors coming increasingly from internal CSR departments and the likelihood of things like regulation coming forward. So how can we become more sustainable as an industry and an ecosystem? Earlier this month, we released our white paper on this topic of reducing the carbon impacts of digital advertising. You can access that from the QR code if you like, and I'll share that again at the end. In that, we tried to share some education with the industry, and we outlined 5 steps that we think the ecosystem can take to be operating more sustainably. And I want to talk about 3 of those with you with the time I have left today. So the first thing is around adopting environmental performance indicators. In order to reduce, we first need to be able to measure. So the first thing to understand is a unit value so that you can compare campaigns, formats, different partners, and benchmark irrespective of the volumes of advertising. So if you're looking at energy consumed per £1,000 or $1,000 spent, you can compare different campaigns irrespective of their format, be they social, display, video. Then you need to understand the total volume of carbon emissions so that you can ensure you're driving towards an absolute reduction over a period of time, year after year, and having a really positive impact. Then when it comes to driving reduction action, it's really important to measure the right KPIs and measure the actions you're taking against the potential counterproductive effects. Any action you take can have a positive or negative impact depending on the context and the parameters of the campaign. Many of the environmental KPIs we see in the industry today are focused on CO2 reduction per 1,000 impressions. We believe the industry should also be looking at CO2 reduction as a factor of budget. And I want to share a quick example as to why we believe that's really important. If you are measuring a campaign based on the emissions per impressions, you might choose to, you might see that a banner ad consumes significantly fewer emissions than a video ad. So you could choose to transfer all of your budget over to that display unit instead of the video ad unit. But of course, that unit is likely to be significantly cheaper. And so assuming budget remains the same and you transferred all of that budget, the overall emissions of the campaign could end up being significantly higher. Hopefully this is a fairly easy example to understand, but you could also take and apply this to a premium publisher versus a lower quality publisher. The CO2 emissions per 1,000 impressions doesn't necessarily assess the quality of your content, of your audience, and how that content performs. So it's really important to talk to your buyers about what they are measuring. The third and final thing, and I think this got talked about in the last session a little bit, is around reviewing and optimizing your ad tech stack. Review who is acting in your supply chain, make sure they're adding value, and if they're not, remove them. Update your ads.txt files. If someone is operating your supply chain, they're not adding value, they're certainly adding carbon, and they're probably reducing monetization. So that was a very quick overview from me. I think as publishers, you really have an opportunity to take control of your narrative, start to measure and benchmark and share data with your buyers. talk to buyers about what they're measuring and how they're measuring, and of course, clean up your supply chain as well. Thanks very much.